Hello, welcome to Engineering Act workshop. This is Rick. So in this workshop, we will present some important knowledge about the Engineering Act for first-year engineering student. Today in this video, we will introduce the most important three topics in Engineering Act, including professional misconduct, code of ethics, and confidentiality. So let me introduce professional misconduct first. Professional misconduct is a serious topic that can have large impacts on engineers' career. So in here, I will introduce what professional misconduct is. According to the definition from the Engineering Act of the PEO, professional misconduct means negligence, harassment, failure to make appropriate provision for the safety guardian of life, health, or property. It also specifies that any regulation violation is also a professional misconduct. So professional misconduct draws the bottom line for engineers, and it also defines the basic responsibility of engineers. As the following picture is shown, professional misconduct is definitely unethical and prohibited from all engineers. If you perform any professional misconduct in your job, it could lead to a career failure. You may be fired, be fined by the PEO, or even be charged guilty in some cases. Therefore, to be a future successful engineer, we must strictly avoid those behaviors we mentioned above. So let's see an example of professional misconduct. Say that in the future, if you are an engineer who is in charge of a construction project of a building, and you just found out that there is a flaw in your design. You are not sure if this flaw will cause the building to crash in the future, but the building strength definitely does not meet the safety standard of the requirements. So this may be a threat to the people who live in the building in the future, and it may cause some safety issues. So here comes the choice time. So will you choose to report this flaw to your company and take the responsibility of your mistake? Or do you want to choose to protect your reputation and decided to hide this issue so no one will know the flaw and you can hope the building stays safe in the future? So you can take a minute to think about this issue. Yeah, and you can pause the video for a minute. So here is the answer time. If you choose the first choice to report the issue and take your responsibility, congratulations, you just avoid a professional misconduct. Although you may lose your reputation and cost money to your company, you do get a chance to fix your mistake and keep your professional. However, if you choose the second choice to hide the flaw and do not report it, you are actually performing professional misconduct, which could lead a more serious issue in the future.
Next, we will discuss the code of ethics and why it is important to every first-year student. Sometimes it can be quite tricky for the first-year engineering students to understand the meaning behind the code of ethics, but don't worry, we are here to help. First, I will give a brief introduction to what is Code of Ethics. The Code of Ethics is a set of guidelines which describes the moral duty and value that can be used to determine if a particular behavior is appropriate or not. And the Code of Ethics is commonly discussed in a large framework instead of just focusing on the specific rules. One of the most important guidelines in the Code of Ethics is that the professional engineers are required to put their responsibility to the public welfare as their top priority. Besides the duty to the general public, engineers also have duties to employers and clients which involve obligations such as the ones listed in the slides. The completed Code of Ethics is included in Section 77 of the Professional Engineers Act. Next, we'll start to answer the second part of the question. Why we need to follow the Code of Ethics, and what are the consequences if a professional engineer fails to follow it? In this section, we will use an example to show the importance of following the code of ethics. James Liang is a professional software engineer who works for Volkswagen. According to investigation, James helped develop the software that cheated the emission test by tweaking the engine characteristics, thus reducing the emission level during the test. Under normal driving conditions, the software was turned off, so the actual emission level is much higher than the results in the test. A quick question. Did James Liang's conduct violate the code of ethics? Yes. According to the code of ethics, a professional engineer should value the public interest above the employer's interest. In this example, the environmental safety is compromised by James Liang and his employer. Now, let's talk about the consequences. The scandal cost Volkswagen reputation and billions of money in fines. More importantly, James Liang was sentenced to 40 months in prison and facing a $200,000 fine for developing the software and violating the Clean Air Act. So, what can we learn from the example? Firstly, the scandal could be avoided if James held the protection of the environment on top of the interests of his employer. Secondly, engineers should use the code of ethics as the guidelines for their decision-making in practice engineering. Lastly, as first-year student, you should learn the importance of the code of ethics, as failed to follow it in the future could cause serious consequences.
I will talk about confidentiality from its definition and how it works in the professions and why it is important for you, first-year engineer students. First, the definition can be found from the Professional Engineer Ontario. You can see in this page. And to be summary, the employer has a duty of care to their employer and must treat information obtained from their employment as confidential. How it works. A worker classification understanding or security preserves limits data that the individual bound by the agreement can share. At the same time, non-content keeps them from reversing the association they have done through the agreement with for a specific period in a geographic area. Therefore, it is essential to have representatives constant to a classification agreement to a security exclusive data. Client information measures organizations' methodology, protect data innovance, and other data indispensable to an organization. And as for the engineering one student, once you graduate and enter a company, the first thing your supervisor or boss may ask you to do is to sign the confidentiality. It is because violate will cause many serious problems like the leakage of information, it will violate the confidentiality. For example, your company may ask you to receive or send email by their email, but not your private one. By conclusion, be aware of confidentiality is very necessary for both your career and your company. And for engineering one student, it is good for you guys to be aware of this information as early as possible.
In conclusion, every first-year engineering students should pay close attention on topics we discussed above. When you graduate from school and start your career, it is very important to maintain confidentiality, avoid professional misconduct, and follow the code of ethics, as failing to do so could cause serious consequences and damage your career permanently.
Hello everyone. In this section, we will be honored to hold a training session for the engineering new hires in Intel. Intel is a renowned computing services provider whose values define fearless, inclusion, customer-obsessed, One Intel, truth and transparency, as well as quality. You are welcome to join our software team as a front-end developer whose main responsibilities will be developing the web GUIs and maintaining the database. This video is targeted with 3 main topics from professional engineering apps, including confidentiality, professional misconduct, and code of ethics. This training is mandatory for new hires according to the company's policy in order to conduct professional engineering practice and deliver qualified services to our customers.
Our first topic will be confidentiality. According to the definition in the Professional Engineers Act published by PEO, every person should preserve secrecy with respect to all matters that come to his or her knowledge in the course of his or her duties, as well as employment. Disclosing confidential information to other parties without the client's consent may result in violating the regulations of PEO. Here are some examples that violate the confidentiality protocol. One example could be sharing confidential project information, such as project progress, blueprint, on personal social media platform. Another example could be copying data from a work computer or server onto a hard drive or USB. A similar action could be like sending emails from a work email account to a personal email account. It is critical to protect the confidentiality of the company and our clients, including your personal projects and our clients' information. The company might suffer a great loss if employees fail to do so.
Here is an example of failure to protect Inter's confidentiality information in year 2020s. The news massive data breach exposed Inter's intellectual property for its flagship CPU and SpaceX sensors. The data breach exposed Inter's abysmal security practice. Most of the leakage people achieved have no passport or very simple passport like Intel 123. The leakage materials also mention backdoors in the Intel sources code. So, as an employee in Intel, it is very important to follow the confidentiality, or the company will suffer from very serious consequences, which may also affect every individual working there. In general, in the engineering profession, confidentiality is particularly a prime concern with respect to the relationship of an employee engineer with his or her employer, and every employee should be responsible to protect confidentiality of the company.
In this section, we will look at the relationships between the code of ethics and professional misconduct by going through their definitions and analyzing the related examples. According to the regulation of PEO, professional misconduct means unethical behaviors such as negligence, harassment, failure to make reasonable or responsible provision, breach of the act or regulations, etc. One example could be failure to conduct appropriate provision for the safeguarding of life, health, or property of a person who may be affected by the work for which the practitioner is responsible. Code of Ethics is a guide of principles designed to help professionals conduct business with fidelity, integrity, and courtesy. The engineer shall maintain the honor with his or her profession and regard the practitioner's duty to public welfare as paramount. Some good qualities that in the Code of Ethics would be cooperative, inclusive, honest, fearless, customer-obsessed, which also agrees with the company's value.
Professional misconduct is also a very common phenomenon in nowadays workshop. One example is discrimination in a workplace. Employment discrimination happens when an employee or job candidate is treated unfavorably because of ages, disabilities, gender, genetic information, nation, religion, or sex, etc. In the internal of Inter, we promote a value of inclusion and one Inter. Differences is welcome and respected. We appreciate it and trust each other. We commit to team over individual success. We are stronger together.
which is helpful to reduce the professional misconducts like discrimination. And also agree with the code of ethics from a personal perspective. In terms of broader company side, we also encourage the employees to report the problems around them. And we will devote to minimize the misconducts by offering guidance and help to those needed.
Let's start with a real-life example with two developers in Intel. An engineer, Charlotte, has found that there's a legitimate bug in her colleague Ethan's project, which could potentially leak sensitive information of hundreds of clients in the next release, but nobody else has noticed yet. Good morning, Ethan. How's the project you have been working on recently?
Good morning, Charlotte. I think it goes pretty well. We're in the last stage before the final release next week.
That's all good news, but I wonder if you guys have run all the required tests to validate it?
I have a spot checked those days, and it seems that there's no such thing to concern. I think this is a fair safe update, and we shouldn't worry too much about it.
I see, but actually I have found a legitimate bug when reviewing the code, which possibly involves a data breach that might be harmful to our customers.
Oh, really? Please show me the bug and we can take a look together. It actually requires a lot of implementations and validation efforts to fixing it, but I don't think there's enough time for me given that we have a deadline next week. I say I'll leave it for now and probably resolve it in the next release. It's just 1 month and the customer don't even notice it.
I don't think this is a good idea though. We can't let our clients to be exposed to such a risk of violating their privacy. It is our responsibility to conduct the professional engineering services with the protection of their interest.
Okay, I think you're right, but the truth is that it's impossible for me to finish this bug update in time. Can you please help me if you happen to have some time?
Sure, not a problem. Let me talk with my manager first, as we are in different groups. I will get back to you later when there's an update.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, Ethan, I just got approval from my manager, and I'm good to help whenever you're ready.
Cool. Let's start with me walking through the code then, and then we can proceed with the detailed strategies to fixing the specific bug through that.
Okay, sounds good. Hopefully we can meet the deadlines if we work together.
All right. I think we're all good now. All the necessary validations have been done, and we got good reviews from other folks as well. This project is ready to be committed early next week, so we can meet the deadlines.
Yeah, I also got the green light from the members in our team, and they left some really exciting comments about the project. The legitimate issue seems to be resolved, and there's no potential data leakage that might affect our customers.
It's amazing that we can fix this bug in time. I'm really sorry about the intention to ignore the bug at the first place. I'd like to express my thanks to you with all the helps offered, and hopefully we will have another chance to work together again.
No worries, Ethan. It's my pleasure to work with you. And I also learned a lot from the implementation. I'm sure we will have some paths across sometime in the future.
Thank you.
So they managed to solve the problem eventually, but there are still some places that we need to take a closer look at. In each question, we will have at least 4 options. Please pause the video if necessary and select whichever is correct. What professional misconducts did Ethan make in the above situation? What aspects of code of ethics did you notice in Charlotte's performance? Now comes to the end of this training session. We have all learned a lot about the topics of confidentiality, professional misconduct, code of ethics through the condensed context and examples. It is critical to convey Intel's value through protecting confidential documents, conducting professional engineering services in the guide of code of ethics. We are one Intel, and everyone should share the same responsibility to do that. Otherwise, both customers and company will suffer from a great loss. So here's the time to test your knowledge through the quizzes. Which one of the below could be considered as a breach of confidentiality? What consequences could a breach of confidentiality lead? Please link the following situations or misconducts with proper responses by following the code of ethics.